Hey, welcome to Unit 8-5. 8-5 is called the point slope form. You remember from 7th grade you had the slope intercept form. Here we're going to be looking at something, a slight variation of that. It is a very useful form that we'll learn today and practice over a couple of days together. So, quick 7th grade review here. State the y-intercept and the slope of the following graph. Remember that slope is this letter m here, and the y-intercept is that letter b. You recall this is from the equation y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, let's take a look here at a couple of examples. So we have a line here. You can see, of course, it's a linear equation, and we have a positive slope because it is going uphill. If you were to write your name on this line, it would be going up, so we call this positive. Notice that the slope here is going to, remember, rise over run. We talked about this recently. The rise here, if we pick any 2 points on the line, let's say we start right here, this point and this point, the rise here would be up, looks like positive 2 and a run of 1. Remember, since slope is rise over run, what you're looking at is 2 over 1, so our slope here is going to be 2. And just by inspection, can you tell what's the y-intercept here? Well, the y-intercept, this is the y-axis and x-axis. So where does this red line cut through the y-axis? Positive 1, 2, 3, looks like right here at the ordered pair of 0, 4. Sorry about the pen here. 0, 4. Okay, 0, 4. So let's take a look and see if that's the numbers we get here. And there we go. So we have a slope of 2, and the y-intercept there is 4. If you wrote that equation out in slope-intercept form, it would be y equals 2x plus 4. 2x plus 4. Good. Okay, let's move a little bit faster here over the next one. How about this one here? Looks like a negative slope, so what do you think the slope here is? Let's see, pick any 2 points. How about this one and this one? Down 1, over 1. Where does it cross the y-axis? Looks like it crosses at positive 1. So how about a slope of negative 1 with a y-intercept of 1? This one here, we have a flat line here, a horizontal line. In fact, there is no rise, is there? There's no rise, so our slope is going to be what number? If there's 0 rise, well, 0 over any non-zero number is just 0. And the y-intercept, where does it cut through the y-axis? At negative 2. 0, negative 2. All right, try this one on your own here. Go ahead and press pause and jot that down real fast, and then we'll check in with you. How about this then? I have a positive slope of 1 over 4 with a y-intercept of 2. Good, I hope you had that. How about this one? We have a vertical line, straight up vertical line. We know we've got a couple of things here. First of all, does it seem to touch the y-axis at all? Well, this vertical line set at x equals 3 is never going to touch the y-axis, so there is no y-intercept. Moreover, because it's a vertical line, we have an undefined slope. So the y-intercept would be the empty set, and the slope would be undefined. And one more for you here. How about this one? Looks like a negative slope. So how about down and over? So what do you think about that? And where does it cross the y-axis? So how about negative 1/2 and negative 3? Okay, so there's a quick review of some linear equations, finding the y-intercept and the slope there, whether it be positive, negative, 0, or undefined. Okay, so our vocabulary for today, we're looking at point slope form. Point slope form. Now make sure you have your notebook ready, because here we go. Things are going to get, this is going to be something you've never seen before here. In math as in real life, there are different forms, and you must make sure you're using the correct form when we're doing our work. This, of course, is the slope-intercept form. You saw this in 7th grade. M being the slope, B being the y-intercept, just like we just got through reviewing. Here is the slope-intercept form. Notice that still we have the letter M, and here we have some x's and y's. So notice what this says, the point slope form. Well, here's a point, x and y, And then what you see here in the black font is just the standard thing that we keep. Now what can change, of course, is when you're given a point, the x and y might change. When you're given a slope, this might change also, depending on what you're given. Point slope form. So you're given a point and a slope. They'll ask you to write an equation. This is a powerful and easy way to do it. Once you've practiced, 6 or 10 of them, nice and easy things to do. So once again, make sure you have both of these in your notes, especially the top one. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. This here, the little sub 1s, just means it's the first point in any given line. If we had 2 points, it might be y sub 2 and x sub 2, or 3 points and so on. So don't worry about the ones, they're just there to designate what point we're talking about. This is the slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b, when you're given a slope and a y-intercept. So we're going to be using the top one today, so make sure you have that down. Alright, with today's lesson, we're only taking half the journey here. We will only be writing the equation. We're not going to be solving or graphing. We're just going to write the equation and stop. And then in the future, near future, we will practice actually writing out the equation as it should be. Write the equation in point slope form for the line with a slope of -4 that contains the point 1, 5. So just watch this one here and see what we do. Remember, the first step is always to start with the equation. If you always write the equation, like the slope, the point slope form, or the slope intercept form, whatever you're using, while you're practicing, then when it comes time to using it, it'll just automatically be there. So each time I would encourage you to write this down. So even when I do these, I've done, you can imagine how many, I still write this each time I start my paper or whatever I'm working on, just to have a remembrance there of what to do. So notice, this y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. What's going to change here, of course, depending on what's given to us, they give us a slope of -4, so that's going to go in for our m, and they give us a point of 1, 5. Well, here's your x, here's your y. Here is x sub 1, because it's the point, it's designated to the point, and here is y sub 1. So let's see how this looks now. Plug in the slope, and you have your -4 there as your coefficient, and then plug in the point given to you, in this case 1 and 5. So you'll notice now you've got y minus 5. Where'd the 5 come from? Well, that's the y value here. Equals -4 times x minus 1. Where'd the 1 come from? Well, that comes from this value here. And remember, our job today was just simply to write the equation, not to do anything else. So we are done here. Y minus 5 equals -4 times x minus 1. Now, for those of you that might want to go just a little bit further here, this is what we'll be doing in a future lesson. We're actually going to solve this and place it back into y equals mx plus b form. And how would we do that? Well, what we do is we leave the left side alone here, but can we distribute this and to here and to here? So this would give us y minus 5 equals -4x, and then what's -4 times -1? +4. +4. And then isolate for y here. So we'd add 5 to both sides. And you end up with y equals -4x plus 9. And this, of course, would be your slope-intercept form. That font is really unpleasant. Nonetheless, this is what we'll be working on immediately, and then we'll eventually get to this piece here, which of course is just a natural step to what you've seen and already know how to do. Alright, let's have you try one on your own now. Okay, so your turn. Let's see, write the equation in point slope form for the line with a slope of 7 that contains the point 4, 2. Slope of 7 contains point 4, 2. Okay, so how do we start this? So let me just give this to you here, and then remember, start with the general form of the equation, y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. Alright, go ahead and try to plug those in. Plug in for the slope and the point, and let's just write the equation out. Go ahead and I will be right here when you get done. Okay, did you start by maybe plugging in, what number did you plug in there for m? Hopefully you plugged in a 7 in there for the slope. And then how about the y sub 1, x sub 1? Well, let's start with x, of course, is the 4 and y is the 2. So I'm going to just replace those y sub 1, x sub 1 with the proper values. And we end up with y minus 2 equals 7 times the quantity x minus 4. And again, right now we're just writing the equation, and then we'll practice isolating y, which I think you can kind of mentally see here what we would do. Distribute, get an answer here, and then add 2 to both sides, and you're done. Of course, it's always easy to graph or inspect a graph with slope-intercept form. You check the slope, you select the y-intercept, and on these high-stakes tests that you'll be experiencing soon, mainly they'll just be asking you to look at a graph and determine which one is which, and by inspecting the slope and the y-intercept, you can easily pick out which graph is going to be the proper answer. Alright, so we'll be using this helpful new point slope form in upcoming assignments, assessments, and you may even see it on Study Island. We'll open up an assignment, I'm sure, in the future there. So that's it for Unit 8.5. If you'd like more instruction, you can look right there at 5-6 video example 2. And if you'd like to practice some, there's digital scored practice right there at that available site for you to practice on your own, just to kind of reinforce it at your leisure. All right then, we'll talk to you soon.